How about that for a qualifying session? Hey, we are excited to bring this to you guys. Singapore qualifying was amazing, and we're going to bring it all to you. This is John Massengale sitting in the studio in Austin, Texas, joined by Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland, who is in Singapore. Chris, how's the electric environment out there?
Oh, yeah, there's a bit of a buzz in the paddock now after that one because I don't think anyone saw that qualifying session coming. It looked like it was going to be an exciting open one. And Carlos Sainz had called it yesterday. He said a 5-team fight for pole. I think he had Red Bull in that fight. And in the end, they just weren't.
Jonathan Green, I'm going to go to you next because I know you're on the ceiling with your buddy Liam Lawson, knocking out Max Verstappen. There's his resume.
Well, I mean, Max was having a bad time and a bad day as it was, but Lawson putting in that time, not only I've been waiting for him to beat Sonoda. He's never been here. It was on pure speed. Not that I'm comparing him to the Red Bull car, but that's a great accolade for him. And the fact that he knocked Max out, well, I'm sure he'll dine out on that one for a while.
But the fact that that Max was knocked out by anyone in Q2 is astonishing. I think we're all a little bit breathless at the fact that Red Bull just does not seem to be able to come to terms with this racetrack. I mean, they walk on water, everybody else, but what is it about Singapore that just, has no time whatsoever for the reigning world champions?
Yeah, Bob, that Max Verstappen looked out of sorts the entire qualifying. I mean, really all weekend, I should say. And
I was prepared to say, well, okay, Max is sandbagging. George Russell said, I think they got the engines turned down. But if you listen to those radio transmissions, I mean, Verstappen was, God, there's too many blankety cars. I know the rear end is stepping out. He was genuinely struggling. You could hear it in his voice. He's not a great actor if he's sandbagging. He's the greatest actor in the world if he was sandbagging, because he genuinely sounded like he was having trouble.
Well, we got a really nice comment on YouTube. Andy P wraps it up for the Haas team. He says, so the trick for Haas is hot, humid, and lots of low speeds corners. Got it. I'm super happy for Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hulkenberg, and the whole team. That's great.
Yeah, it really is good.
Terrific job. I went the Massengale way, and I was taking notes during this race, and finally I stopped doing it. I said, we don't have enough time.
Yeah,
me too. All of the interesting points of this race, and Haas was certainly one of them. Great job by those guys. And they've still got a big upgrade they say they're going to bring.
Yeah, bring it into Austin. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Hey, Chris Medland, I want to ask you about Lance Stroll. Before he crashed, I know he'd gotten impeded, but I was thinking, man, he could be in trouble. Like, the pressure on his dad to keep him on the team, but that was just a disaster. And it looks like he's okay. So, but I mean, am I exaggerating this situation?
Well, no, I mean, the lap was a better one he was on, but it wasn't brilliant. And that accident actually happens right outside the media center window, essentially. We're just above the first kind of set of pit garages. So the noise it made, like the thud, it was like a small explosion, to be honest. You knew he'd crashed before, if you're watching on the screens, long before it happened. It was a huge impact, made a heck of a mess, and testament to the cars that he could jump out. Yeah, he has been cleared. He went to the medical center, all good, all clear. So he's fine on that front. So hopefully, from his point of view, should be fine to race tomorrow. But yeah, it's an expensive rebuilding job for the team, and this is a cost cap era. It's a big one as well, whether they've got all the parts they need. But obviously, it won't cost them any positions on the grid, since he was 20th anyway. But I don't see a scenario where Lawrence is ever going to move Lance aside, but the questions won't stop getting asked because if these incidents keep happening, and that was a really, really costly one.
What a horrible break for the team. They're starting this 8-race series of flyaway races all over the world, and now they may have to essentially build an all-new race car for Stroll, according to Alex Brundle, who said he thought he saw a whole new chassis being unloaded.
That would not surprise me, looking at the damage. Really wouldn't surprise me. There was a lot. Obviously, the front left came off and flew across the track as well, didn't it? Nearly collected Lando Norris as he came around the final corner. So, there was a lot there to deal with. And that's going to be a big...
That'll take a lot of looking at.
Oh, I mean, the team will be working, curfew will be broken. They'll be working all night all night and into the morning, actually, seeing as the time zone we're on. It will be daylight, I imagine, before they finish. So, that's a horror show for them, really. And these are not easy conditions to work in either. So, dare I say it, I don't think there's many worse places you could do that.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan Green, Carlos Sainz 2 in a row. I mean, I think a lot of people think that maybe Charles Leclerc is like maybe the fastest of all the Formula One drivers over a single lap. But Carlos Sainz is making an argument for himself, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And you know what? What's interesting is that Leclerc's been the one that everybody's talking about, like, fed up with Ferrari, fed up with the way things have gone with Binotto and all the rest of it. But actually, Sainz now might be the number one guy that people are searching for to put in their car if he doesn't want to stay at Ferrari and it doesn't pick up there. Or the other side of it is Ferrari finally getting it all together, and we really do have the potency of Leclerc and Sainz.
And let's not forget, I know we're doing a shortened show today because of the long red flag or the long break between sessions. On top of everything else, Verstappen's got to go to the stewards and explain himself for several infractions, including impeding on the racetrack and impeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, Tsunoda could have got through, He could have got through had he not been impeded because he was firing on all cylinders. He was second quickest at one point.
Yeah, Tsunoda was really unfortunate. He didn't get a time in at all in the end in Q2. I haven't seen what happened on his final run because he looked like he was actually up. When Lawson went 10th, I thought that Tsunoda might ruin that fairy tale and bump Lawson down to 11th. But then he aborted that as well. So, yeah, that was... I'll go and try and find out from AlphaTauri in a bit what happened with that one, but he was very, very quick. Verstappen's investigations all start in about 15 minutes, so 11 o'clock local time, and they'll run through 3 he's involved in. So you've got the pit lane incident, then you've got the incident with lots of cars in the final couple of corners where we saw those shots at the end of Q1 of an absolute traffic jam, and he was on the outside of that, which was not a particularly comfortable place to be. I think he potentially as a driver is most at risk of a penalty there, but normally you get mitigating circumstances across multiple drivers, and then also the final incident with Yuki. So they're being done like every 5 minutes from 11 o'clock. So sadly we'll be off air, but we'll find out what happens probably in an hour or so, I think, to what happened there.
Hey, Chris, I could see Verstappen's expression on his face. Why don't you go see if you can grab an interview with Verstappen? It would probably be very spicy.
Sorry, you'll have to hit me with that again. I was miles away trying to line up a Christian Horner before we're off air.
I was saying Verstappen looks livid, honestly, and I was joking that you should get an interview with him. Yeah,
I value my life. I think, he was not happy at all at any point today. But it shows the high standards they've got, very high standards that they've got. They're never going to go like, oh well, we've been doing brilliantly. Here's a blip that we'll just ride out. They were raging. But both drivers, look at that mistake again from Perez. I know it's in a much harder season, but that shows that it's the car here is just not working at all.
Yeah, it's stunning. I was texting with a buddy and he was saying this on Thursday or Friday. In fact, actually, it was Kevin Kelly who's on YouTube right now, and he was all saying, "Oh, it's not going to be Red Bull's weekend." And I was like, "Yeah, buddy, I love your enthusiasm and your optimism, but I just don't see it happening." And I was completely wrong. I was pretty stunned by all this. I don't know about you guys.
Well, let me ask a question to Chris. What can they do from there? Because they've stunned it. We've seen this at Spa, we've seen this at other places, but is this a no-go that they just are not competitive?
To be honest, I think you've got to think as well, this circuit, this is not an easy place to make progress to overtake. I know there's some track layout changes this year that could aid that a bit. The car looked more competitive in race trim, but not dominant by any stretch. And if it just takes a while to make some progress, then Sainz and Leclerc and Russell may well have escaped up the road too far. So, a lot can happen here. It can get a bit crazy, but right now I'd say that runs over. It would take something special, I think, for Red Bull to turn it around from there.
Hey, Jonathan, I know you've been to Singapore a few times. I said it on the Wheel to Wheel show on Wednesday. This is a bucket list place to go, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And the timing with it being at night, if you think about it, we talked on Wheel to Wheel about what it's like for the drivers to eat and the journalists and so on. Well, for the fans, it's perfect. They get to sit by the pool all day, and then they go, instead of going out to the bars and the clubs, the bars and the clubs are looking over the track. So it's the ultimate night out.
Yeah, they had that great shot. I don't know what the name of that hotel is that sits on
the Marina Bay.
Marina Bay.
Yeah.
And the folks are there in the infinity pool looking out onto the racetrack from,
you gotta love that,
15 stories up.
Hey, we got our own version of this coming up soon in Vegas. It's going to be very similar.
Oh, you're going to be in the infinity pool? Is that what you've been looking at?
That's why we're doing our show, Bob.
But John, it's November in Vegas at midnight. It's going to be cold.
Yeah, it is. I don't know about that. Is it really?
Well, I know the beverages will be.
Hey, Chris, what's happening at the media pin there?
So I'm in a queue to speak to Christian Horner, as everyone is. So see like where we shuffle out in all of this, because my lack of a camera on my shoulder does tend to get us pushed back a bit. And if it looks like I won't get him before we're off air, then I will run to find Gunther Steiner instead, because like you said, that's a good news story for Haas how today's gone. But I know, as the guys have pointed out, we've got a shortened show today. We are going to have plenty of opportunities, though, in the build-up show tomorrow to kind of get the fallout from today in the way it's... The thing that's great is it's just teed the race up so beautifully, hasn't it?
Oh, my gosh, yeah. I mean, like you said before we went on the air, there's going to be a lot of people listening tomorrow, so I can't wait, man. This is going to be, hopefully, one of the most exciting of the year. Bob, I see you smiling. What do you agree?
No, I'm looking at those notes I was just talking about earlier. At the end of Q1, your top five were Tsunoda, Perez, Hülkenberg, Lawson, and Magnussen. And as some wag pointed out earlier this season, those would probably be the biggest vote getters to be eliminated in Q1. Here they are leading after Q1. And
Awesome.
it shows you how this track evolves so quickly. Chris, is any more rain expected? I know they had heavy rain last night, but is this track going to turn green again?
Maybe slightly, yeah. We actually had quite a heavy downpour earlier today, so about 3 p.m. local time, 2-3 hours before final practice. But it's pretty short and sharp. There's a lot of running going on with GT cars and Porsches that are doing support racing, so they lay down a bit of rubber, but not the same rubber. But yeah, it actually I think is a slightly heightened chance. I think they said 40% chance today, and we got it. So tomorrow's 60, I believe. To affect the race, not so much, but yeah, as you said, the grip level and then track evolution, which can play a big part in strategy, that could be quite a big factor.
Hey, Chris, we've been talking about it since about week 3 or 4 and saying, will Red Bull win every race? And this looks like our best opportunity to be right, because both you and I said it wasn't going to be happen.
Well, and dare I say we should have seen this coming, but maybe in one sense we should have seen it coming, because do you remember Mercedes used to be so dominant and then would come to Singapore and really struggle? It just wouldn't suit their car. They'd have a lot of trouble with that. And if there was going to be a venue that was going to happen to Red Bull, I guess it was going to be here. And I just don't think anyone expected it based on how almost impossible it has been for them to trip up at any stage. They've dealt with everything thrown at them. So I don't want to say fail. Fail's a tough word to use, isn't it? For it to go so wrong, though, for today at least, so spectacularly, is just a real surprise.
And that suggests, at least to me, that it's something really inherent in the concept of the car. I was reading an article last week about the Red Bull technology and how good it is everywhere, regardless of ride height and everything, mostly down to the depth of the tunnels that provide the downforce leading to the diffuser and the rear suspension, where apparently they've hit on something that really makes the car special. And they knew that they were coming into this race, and I think they knew that they were going to struggle. And we heard, I think it was Perez during the action saying the rear won't stick, the balance is horrible, the front is locking up. How does that happen to an Adrian Newey-led design team? And how come they couldn't respond quickly? I suspect it's because it's due to something that they cannot change on the car.
Well, I'm going to put out something that a lot of people are going to jump on, I think, at this point. But we have a new technical directive that's been introduced this weekend that relates to essentially flexible bodywork. A lot of talk was about front wings. I remember we were talking about it in Monza about kind of that it had been issued, but it was coming into force this weekend. And that technical directive, while the front wings were the main talking point. I think it was Williams that actually said, well, we'll have to do a little bit on our floor, just a bit, but hope, nothing major, and hopefully it won't really impact us at all, and maybe it will hurt some others and drag them back towards us. Well, people are going to go, well, that's a change in terms of the way the technical regs are being enforced, and Red Bull have suddenly dropped away. Now, as we pointed out, Mercedes have had trouble here before, but that could be something where they just haven't got on top of it, and they haven't got the balance of the car right.
Hey, Chris, so did Red Bull make a change? Because, you think about the flexibility of the wings, right? There's only a couple of ways you can do that. You can add more material, making it heavier, or bracing or something. Did they make a change that we know of that reduced the flexibility?
Well, the thing is, they have to be able to comply with whatever the test is that the FIA are going to do, and that's normally what a technical directive will address. Now, if I look at the upgrades that were brought this weekend to Singapore with Red Bull, they made a slight tweak to their floor edge, but they said that was for performance. It was actually the more camber on part of it to help floor performance. And then they made a little bit of a tweak to the rear wing end plate, and that was it. So that talks about a specification change. So that won't tell us, and the team would have to tell us essentially if they wanted to, whether they slightly strengthened an existing design, by adding just a little bit of extra thickness to carbon fiber or whatever it may well have been that they wanted to do to prevent something flexing. So it could be that a couple of things working in conjunction have changed, and it could actually have been a relatively small change. But off the back of that small change, if that upsets the balance of the car, then another reason it's tough to get it right here is that you only have FP2 that takes place in conditions that are like qualifying in the race. So FP1 and FP3, it's still in daylight, warmer temperatures, higher track temperatures. The balance is very different then. So they basically got 1 hour to get that balance right. And we've seen, haven't we, in qualifying, there's been times that either they've been beaten or just haven't been that dominant. It's been very close. This time it went the other way.
It'd be amazing if Red Bull was responding to that technical directive because they needed to. After Christian Horner, when the directive came out, gave it the old, nah, we've seen rubber noses around, it's like, we don't have to do anything, but other teams will. And now here we go. They, step on their what when they get to Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, it will be intriguing to see. Sadly, I have been shuffled back by some TV crews here, and I've gone to find Gunter Steiner, who's just gone into the Haas debrief, I believe. But if I can grab just a word with Christian Horner before we go off air in a few minutes, I will, to see if anything has changed, if they've got an explanation. But I think this might be one that we'll get a bit more time with him tomorrow pre-race and get hopefully some solid explanations, because they'll have been able to look into it by then too.
All right, guys. Well, unfortunately we're out of time, and but tomorrow, of course, we'll be back, and let's look at our times. So we'll get started at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So 6 a.m. for you and me, Johnny Green, here in Austin.
Lovely.
And we'll have our 1 hour pre-race show. Thank you, Casey. And then we got the race right here on SiriusXM channel 81, ESPN Extra, and of course our post-race show right after all of that. But of course, Chris will be in Singapore with his microphone, and hopefully he'll grab an interview or two right now. Maybe we'll get Gunther, and we'll have lots more tomorrow. But thanks, everybody, for tuning into the short show, however you did it, on Sirius or on YouTube, and we'll talk to you in the morning.